What's up guys, Jam here. Before we get into things, thank you guys so much for 300 subscribers. I really appreciate the support. Chapter 14 ended with Wilhelm taking Subaru's advice and deciding to try apologizing to Reinhard. Chapter 15 takes place the next day with Subaru half awake as he is greeted by a smiling Emilia. What is it? You seem happy today. Did something nice happen? Subaru smiles and nods. After Subaru and Emilia finished greeting one another, Subaru turned towards Beatrice and Otto, who had just arrived. Those two over there have such unhappy looking faces. It's nothing, in fact. Please don't mind me, I just had a little too much to drink. Subaru asks Otto where he was last night. Otto tells him that he already told him that he wanted to establish some connections in Pristella. Subaru sighs and mentions that Otto is more drunk when they first met. Otto is confused and mentions that his memory might be messed up, but he remembers that his first meeting with him did not involve alcohol. Subaru's first meeting with Otto was in a failed loop, where he first found Otto wasted in a tavern, which is why this Otto does not have knowledge of that meeting. Otto wonders where Garfield is, as it's rare not to see him up early in the morning. Subaru tells Otto that there's a reason he's not around and to be gentle with him the next time he sees Garfield. Subaru catches up with Beatrice and asks why she seems so gloomy. Beatrice tells him not to assume things and that she's just remembering events from yesterday. It started yesterday after Subaru abandoned me to play with Garfield, in fact. Betty had gone to look for Emilia to kill time with, I suppose. On the way to her room, I ran into an employee, who I made a little bit of small talk with, in fact. Bayako making small talk? Subaru was speechless that Beatrice's communication skills had improved somewhat and turned to Emilia. Emilia was just as excited as she gave an eager nod. Subaru makes a mental note that once they return home, he needs to update the Bayako growth diary. The diary recorded Beatrice's daily growth. It had already reached 3 volumes. Beatrice did not know that Subaru was doing this. Subaru, what the hell, bro? I'm just gonna pretend I did not see that. Beatrice continued explaining her experience last night where she met a ghost on the front porch until Subaru turned towards the drunk Otto and asked him what he did last night. I remember now. As I laid on the porch, still on the verge of vomiting, I noticed that Beatrice was staring at me, but I was unable to speak at the time. Finally, I couldn't hold back and went to vomit in the bushes. Once I came back, she had vanished. Beatrice was in disbelief that the ghost she found last night was none other than a drunk Otto. Subaru and Emilia began laughing at poor Beatrice's misunderstanding. She's saved by the rival of Felt, who asks Subaru about the weird dance he does in the morning. Subaru explains what radio gymnastics is to Felt and how it's become popular in the Mather's domain. Otto and Beatrice agree with Subaru and mention how addicting it is. Felt's still wrapping her head around it all and mentions that there's several other strange activities happening in Emilia's domain, such as strange dances, hollowed out pumpkins, women carefully baking food for their beloved as a gift. Subaru had been using his knowledge of his old world and introducing their ideas to the Mather's territories. They had all been massively successful. Emilia changes the topic by asking Felt why Reinhard isn't with her. Felt complains that Reinhard is too annoying and she had told him to go off somewhere else. Emilia laughs and tells Felt that she has beautiful hair. Felt isn't too pleased and tells Emilia to mind her own business. Subaru turns to Otto and tells him that he could go to bed or take a bath since they're done with the radio gymnastics. Otto complains that he had already taken a bath, but the smell of alcohol still lingered. Subaru laughs until they hear a loud voice. Good morning, citizens of Pristella. Subaru was startled as he didn't know where the voice was coming from. Even Emilia and the others had noticed the loud voice. Subaru wonders if it was a loudspeaker, but he's corrected by Otto, who was the only one that wasn't startled by the voice. You didn't know? This radio functions with the help of a mana-powered instrument in Pristella's government hall. What I heard yesterday when I was drinking was that every morning the radio would make an announcement to the citizens of Pristella. Otto mentions that the city uses this for emergencies, daily instructions, or evacuations. Subaru assumes that the person behind this must be very smart to make such a thing and wonders if it's the mayor. Otto corrects Subaru and mentions the radio is powered by mana stones, so it's very likely that Kiritaka is responsible for the radio. Subaru starts getting flashbacks to yesterday when he got assaulted by Kiritaka. Kiritaka uses the radio again, addressing the citizens of Pristella. This is a magical device which can transmit my voice throughout the entire city. If I startled anyone unfamiliar with this, I offer my apologies. You're very lucky to be hearing this broadcast today. Subaru found it very hard to believe that the serious voice on the radio could belong to Kiritaka. No, wait. Clint also doesn't seem like a degenerate. Could it be that lolicons are clever at disguising themselves? No, Subaru, you're right, that's what they are. Subaru's interrupted mid-thought by Kiritaka introducing Lilina on the radio. Lilina introduces herself and sings her new song, the Sword Demon's Love Song, Act 2. We then cut to Subaru, who was in the living room of the hotel after eating breakfast. Subaru was reflecting on Lilina's song and how it seemed to be inspired by Wilhelm and his wife. It would make sense since Wilhelm's wife did end a civil war. Subaru wonders where Crucia's faction is and hopes that Wilhelm did not hear Lelina's song. Emilia asks Subaru if everything is alright as he was tapping his foot on the floor rapidly. Emilia and the others enjoyed Lelina's song and were not aware that the lyrics were inspired by Wilhelm and his wife. Subaru tries to play it off as nothing, but Emilia sees right through his bluff and tells him that she doesn't believe him. Otto adds that Subaru should be paying attention as they're discussing their plans for the afternoon. Subaru nods and mentions that they should take Lelina as a hostage for their second meeting with Kiritaka today. Otto could not believe that Subaru would suggest such a plan and shuts it down immediately. Otto continues by explaining their game plan for the second meeting. In any case, this afternoon we'll be attempting negotiations with Kiritaka again, and the one that we should try to win the trust of is the member of the Scales of the White Dragon, who's the most likely to be able to persuade Kiritaka. Otto suggests that they leave Subaru behind to avoid accidentally angering Kiritaka again. Subaru then decides he'll take Emilia and Beatrice with him to go on a walk to a park he found. Otto tells him if they go to the negotiations without Emilia, it'll be like showing up unannounced. Emilia mentions that it would be fun to go on a walk with Subaru and Beatrice. She looks to Otto for approval. Otto sighs and says he'll go with Garfield to the negotiations. Subaru is glad as he plans on meeting Lelina at the same park as yesterday. He hopes that if Kiritaka loves Lelina from the bottom of his heart, he would not refuse a direct request from her. Subaru knew that he couldn't just use Lelina as Emilia would be against it and he'd feel guilty about it. But Subaru hopes that if he's honest and tells Lelina his story, that'll be enough for her to do them a favor, although he's worried about her making a song about him. Before he could dwell on it too much, he hears Anastasia greeting them all, following by Reinhard doing the same, and he thanks Subaru for reminding Felt to return to her room. Behind Reinhard was Felt, who insisted it was not her intention to do so. Everyone in the room begins making small talk with one another until Julius arrives. Anastasia asks why the others aren't with him. Julius apologizes and explains why. Ricardo said he had something to do and went out to the city last night, but Mimi and her brothers, they seem to follow the Emilia faction's Garfield. Mimi saw Garfield leave the hotel and went after him, then the other two followed Mimi, so they all left Joshua. Anastasia stares at Joshua, who was extremely pale and hiding behind his older brother, attempting to explain himself. I am deeply, extremely sorry. I desperately tried to stop them, but Mimi and Hetero weren't listening at all. Tivy said to please leave everything to him. Anastasia sighs and apologizes to Emilia for Mimi being distracted by her first love. Shortly after, Krush and her faction arrived. She apologized for being late. Subaru sees Wilhelm and is instantly reminded of the song that played from earlier. Ferris winks at Subaru, sending him the message that they already took care of it and he doesn't need to worry. Now that the heads of each faction had arrived, Anastasia introduces today's treat, a special type of pancake. Subaru's taken aback as it's a pancake from Japan that has been passed down for generations. Everyone begins making their own pancakes and are having a blast, except for Wilhelm, who is struggling to turn his pancake, causing it to tear apart. Subaru walks over as he wants to help him out, but he has a better idea. Subaru gently points his jaw towards Reinhard. Wilhelm sighs, understanding what Subaru means. Wilhelm walks over and sits next to Reinhard and Felt. Reinhard was busy making pancakes for Felt until he heard Wilhelm call his name, causing him to freeze instantly. Everyone in the room goes quiet, watching Wilhelm and Reinhard. What is it, honored grandfather? I'm not so good at this, so if you know any kind of trick to make it easier, could you teach it to me? Reinhard softly sighs and smiles. Yes, I understand, honored grandfather. Subaru is happy to see the potential divide between grandfather and grandson could finally come to an end, until a loud voice yells at them. It isn't so easy, honored father. Don't think that your relationship will be fixed with just that. Suddenly, a red-haired man threw open the door of the tea room. The face of the red-haired man who'd spoken those words carried so much malice that everyone froze on the spot, forgetting the flow of time. And that sums up Chapter 15 of Arc 5. This was a great chapter both for world building and the plot itself. We got to learn more about Pristella. The magical radio is interesting and might be useful at some point, although, unfortunately, the tragic duo of Kiritaka and Lelina are the ones using it. Otto has finally returned, and of course he's hungover. He's not exactly being transparent with Emilia and the others about why he was out last night. I think he might be hiding something from them. I wonder what it could be. But I'm so glad that Tappe keeps showing us more Reinhard and Wilhelm interactions. They really might be able to fix their relationship one day. Although, I am pretty salty that a red-haired man ruined their touching moment. Let me know who you guys think the red-haired man is, and if Reinhard and Wilhelm will be able to fix their relationship. Let me know if you guys have any theories, predictions, or thoughts about the chapter or going forward in the comments section. I'll be reading all of the comments, then responding to and discussing 3 to 5 comments in the next video. Alright, now to get into 3 comments of the last video's comment section. The first one comes in from Luis. They wrote, Read the EX2 and 3 novels. I binge read them the other day and they were amazing. I plan to, as I do want to make a summary for each EX novel on the channel at some point. Glad to hear they're amazing though. The second comment comes in from Tangel. They wrote, Subaru's gotta explain a lot of things to the FBI. Indeed he does, as well as Kiritaka and Klind. The final comment comes in from Steerman100. They wrote, this is such a beautiful chapter. I love the relationships in this arc, and I also love the world building and politics of this arc so far as well. It's a great break from the last arc and anime as well. Keep up the great work, and thank you for the summaries. It certainly is. I love how ReZero can just have chapters and episodes dedicated to a conversation between two characters, and it's very impactful and enjoyable to watch or read. I love Arc 5 for the same reasons as you. Arc 4 was great, but I really wanted to see more of the other factions, which is what Arc 5 gives us and more. Also thank you and no problem. I'm glad you enjoy the summaries. With that being said, thank you so much for the support as always. If you don't want to miss out on future Arc 5 summaries and more ReZero content, please consider subscribing and hitting the bell. Thank you for watching and I hope you all have a great day.